The galaxy's call for help wasn't new. Desperate messages had echoed across the stars for centuries, some pleading, others simply screaming. Most were met with silence. The Galactic Council would deliberate, debate, and ultimately do nothing. When the Kravari swarm began consuming fringe worlds like wildfire, no one expected help to come. The Council labeled it a tragic inevitability. Billions died as politicians argued. But then, something strange happened. One of those distress signals reached Earth. There was no vote, no bureaucracy, no delay. Humanity heard the cry for aid, and they answered in the only language they truly mastered: force. Within days, Earth's 7th Armada entered Kravari space, its ships blunt and brutish, its soldiers relentless. To the galaxy, they were uncivilized. To the dying colonies, they were salvation wrapped in thunder. This wasn't diplomacy. It was retaliation. And for the first time in centuries, the Devourers met something they couldn't swallow. The last broadcast. The message came from the edges of the Orion Spur, transmitted in fractured pulses, barely cutting through the radiation. Storms of collapsed systems. It wasn't a transmission meant for diplomacy. It wasn't even a call for rescue. It was a scream, raw, unfiltered terror recorded by a dying AI embedded in a planetary defense grid. To any species capable of hearing this, they are here. The Kravari are not invaders. They are extinction. For most of the galaxy, this wasn't news. The Kravari swarm had emerged centuries ago, spreading like a virus across the lesser defended sectors. Hive-minded, brutal, and methodical, they consumed biospheres, mined planetary cores, and discarded what couldn't be used. They didn't negotiate. They didn't stop. And the Galactic Council, paralyzed by internal politics, cultural divisions, and fear, refused to engage them head-on. But that last signal didn't vanish in bureaucratic limbo. It reached Earth, and Earth, bruised, hardened, and all too familiar with the price of inaction, responded. A history forged in conflict humanity. Had not joined the Galactic Council with much ceremony, their induction was delayed for decades due to concerns about their aggressive cultural legacy, their history of intra-species violence, and above all, their obsession with militarization. Earth, even in peace, maintained defense, budgets greater than the GDP of entire Council member planets. Their weapon systems were redundant, their fleets often excessive. But Earth had something the Council did not: clarity born from pain, from the collapse of empires, from 2 global wars and countless smaller ones, to near planetary extinction via climate breakdown and AI errors. Humanity had survived it all, often barely. That history forged a species that understood when negotiation ended and force began. So when the 7th Terran Armada mobilized, it did not wait for permission. Earth's prime directive was clear. We do not start wars, but we end threats. Within 72 hours, 108 capital ships supported by 900 smaller vessels launched from Sol's outer orbital platforms. Their destination? Sector Theta 11, Kravari space. The Council reacts. The news hit the Galactic Council like a neutron shockwave. This is a unilateral action. Terrans are violating the peace mandate. They'll provoke the swarm further. They could bring the Kravari upon us all. The loudest voices were also the most sheltered, species that had never lost a homeworld, whose fleets hadn't seen combat in centuries. They criticized Earth's bold move as barbaric, irresponsible, even genocidal. But for the frontier colonies, those who lived with the fear of annihilation every day, there was only gratitude. On Port Yethra, a station orbiting the recently devastated Yethran 4, a small band of surviving engineers watched as the first human destroyers dropped from FTL. Is that a Terran ship? One whispered. The others couldn't answer. The humans had come. Force multiplied. The first engagement came in orbit around Yethran Fort. Kravari ships, bioorganic monstrosities with carapace plating and swarming drone pods, converged on the Terran formation. The humans didn't hesitate. The 7th Armada deployed its signature forge line strategy. coordinated overlapping fields of fire, adaptive railgun calibration based on enemy hull resonance, and close formation energy redistribution. The Kravari were used to overwhelming their prey. They weren't used to coordinated resistance. The difference was philosophy. The Kravari fought to consume. The humans fought to end. Ground truth victory in orbit didn't mean the world was safe. Ythrin Fo's surface was infested with Kravari harvesters. That's when the Terran Marines deployed. Drop pods screamed through the atmosphere, hitting the ground with seismic force. Within seconds, platoons of powered infantry were engaging enemy tunnel systems, clearing out nest clusters with thermal charges and plasma-forged blades. Every Terran soldier wore adaptive armor linked to orbital command. Every breath, movement, and heartbeat was part of a synchronized digital war dance. But it wasn't just technology, it was mindset. Sergeant Helena Ruiz, leading her squad through the ruins of an overrun mining colony, didn't think in terms of defense. She moved with purpose, clearing buildings one by one. Civilians were here, she muttered, seeing the remains. Private Kwan nodded grimly. Not anymore. They weren't here to reclaim ground. They were here to punish. Shock and reckoning. The Kravari hadn't known fear until now. Within one Terran month, 12 systems previously under swarm control were liberated. Human forces didn't just defeat the Kravari, they annihilated them. The species that had once treated the galaxy like a buffet now found itself losing entire clusters to a force that didn't rest, didn't debate, and didn't ask for permission. Earth broadcasted only one message after every battle. This system is now under Terran protection. Any further aggression will be met with overwhelming force. No further warnings will be given. It wasn't diplomacy. It was doctrine. The debate reignites. The Galactic Council split further. Some member species, like the Drax and the Orlani, moved to formally support Earth's campaign. Others demanded sanctions. They're disrupting the balance of power. They're setting a dangerous precedent. But to the colonies on the fringe, Earth's fleet wasn't dangerous. It was the only thing standing between them and extinction. For the first time in living memory, the swarm was on the defensive. Aftermath and memory, the war ended with the Battle of Harkon Rift. The Kravari, desperate and cornered, unleashed their hibernating queens, massive bioships the size of moons. Earth responded by deploying the Dauntless Protocol, a coordinated strike involving kinetic orbital weapons, antimatter warheads, and a final wave of exosuited special forces targeting the Queen's nerve centers from within. The battle lasted 39 hours. The swarm was decapitated, the Kravari scattered. What remained was silence and the burnt glassy ruins of their former hives. Legacy and balance. In the years that followed, Earth was offered a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. They declined. Instead, they proposed the Sentinel Charter, a multinational rapid response force trained under Terran doctrine, composed of volunteers from any species willing to act before debate. Some saw it as Earth's way of projecting power. Others saw it for what it was, a promise that no cry for help would ever go unanswered again. A whisper in the stars. Decades later, in a classroom orbiting a quiet planet on the edge of known space, a young Thalassy child raised her hand. "Teacher," she asked, "why do humans fight so hard?" The instructor smiled. "Because they remember what it's like when no one comes to help. And now, they never let that happen to anyone else." Echoes of steel and fire. The price of victory came with a cost. The Battle of Harkon Rift was celebrated across frontier worlds, but the casualty lists told another story. Over 12,000 Terran personnel were confirmed dead. Several cruisers were lost entirely. And in the final push to eliminate the Kravari Queens, 3 elite infiltration squads vanished without trace, presumed vaporized within collapsing hive cores. Earth didn't mourn with public displays. They mourned with silence. Across the Terran Confederacy, families gathered for private remembrance. The names of the fallen were etched into obsidian walls on Luna's memorial arch. No grand speeches, just a digital flame and a quiet inscription. They heard the cry and answered. For every Terran child born after that war, the story wasn't myth. It was inherited memory, the seeds of unrest. But not everyone was grateful in the years following. The Kravari War A coalition of mid-tier council species formed the Neutral Sovereignty Accord, an effort to limit Terran military operations beyond Sol. Their argument was simple. Earth had tipped the balance. It had proven that military force could bypass diplomatic process, and now, some feared that Earth might not stop with the Kravari. Humanity responded not with aggression, but with a calm that was, to many, even more terrifying. We do not seek conquest, but we do not wait for permission to protect life. Choose your side with care. That cold, simple message echoed in council halls for decades. Scars and symbols. On Rhinax Wow, a young doctor named Ilara Ven opened a clinic among the ruins of a former Kravari harvest zone. The buildings still bore the scars of orbital bombardment, and skeletal remains, both alien and human, were occasionally uncovered during construction. Ilara was not a soldier. She had never held a weapon, but she kept a small Terran helmet on her shelf, a scorched relic found outside the makeshift hospital she inherited. No one knew the name of the Marine who wore it, but she honored them each morning. When asked why, she answered simply,